Hi everyone, I'm GREYMOND. Today I'm answering questions about OCD recovery. These are questions that you asked below my video. Ask a question about OCD. And first question is there a way to go through OCD without having bad reactions or suffering too much? Let's say you react well in ERP and you only take exposures that you can handle day by day, month by month. I completely agree with you. The ERP stands for exposure and response prevention. So the exposure is the situation that puts you in the OCD fear, right? It could be a thought, it could be a physical situation, it could be a physical situation and a thought or a memory or a dream or somebody said something, whatever. So something triggered you. That's the exposure. That happens pretty much to everybody who has OCD unless they're doing heavy avoidance. When you're doing a lot of avoidance, the situation's a little bit different because you need to add exposures into your life. But most people already have exposures. The problem is, instead of response prevention, meaning preventing the response of fear, they're responding with a lot of fear, checking, analyzing, showing the brain basically that the person is really afraid, and the brain takes that to mean that this is, scary, right? If you're saying you're afraid, then it must be scary. And if it's scary, then I need to send this to you all again all the time, you know? And that's how OCD, that's why the thoughts are repetitive, because it's that mechanism of fear, right? It's engaged. So the response prevention is critical. If you're doing ERP or trying to do ERP, scaring yourself, so you're doing the exposure, you're scaring yourself, and you're not doing the response prevention because it's too much, then you're actually making yourself worse, not better. So I completely agree with what you're saying. You need to do it in the way that you can handle doing the response prevention. If you are in situations where you can't prevent exposure, such as, for example, any life situation, say, for example, you have driving OCD and you have to drive to work every day. So whether you like it or not, that's the exposure that you have to face every day. Then you need to push through with response prevention. Even and really push through. But it might not work out right away, but we don't really have any other choice. But if you can control the exposures, then I would say definitely take what you can do. So don't take on too much. You need to take it in a way that you can actually handle doing the correct response prevention. And choosing not to respond with fear doesn't mean that the anxiety and fear is not going to be there. Fear comes on automatically. But if you respond with fear, you're kind of upping the level. So say exposure came in, right? Some sort of triggering situation came in with fear at level 8 out of 10. Well, by doing reassurance or compulsions, you just upped it all the way to a 10 by responding with fear, right? Or you didn't respond with fear, and maybe after an hour it went down to, say, a 6. It will still be at a 6, but it went down, and that was good exercise, right? So just kind of a side note. Next question is, hi, I'm a relatively new viewer and I have homosexual OCD. And I wondered if it's normal to be so confused about my sexuality now. Like, I want to be straight, but I know everything makes me question it. Is this still OCD? It causes me so much anxiety. Also, I really struggle with going out and seeing people like at a grocery store. I focus so much on other women's bodies and it almost feels like an urge to check to see if I'm attracted to them. Also, is it possible to confuse attraction for anxiety? Is all of this normal for this type of OCD? It feels so real and true. All of this is normal for this type of OCD. You definitely have HOCD. It's very normal for you to feel this way. What you need to understand is right now, you can't continuously be checking your feelings. How do I feel? Do I feel like this or do I feel like that? Am I attracted? Am I not attracted? This is what gets you further into OCD. This is the trigger, right? The exposure. So what you want to say when these thoughts come in, right? You want to say, whatever, I'm not reacting. This is OCD, I'm not reacting. So you're saying, I'm not believing this. It's OCD. I'm choosing to move on without trying to feel a certain way. Because it's the more you chase the feelings, the more scared you feel, and the more real those feelings feel, right? It's a little bit complicated when the whole obsession is about feelings, right? It feels complicated. It's really not, you know? you have to look at it that this is not just because of the topic, it doesn't make it any different. So as soon as those thoughts come in, you have to say, nope, OCD, I'm disregarding, not paying attention to it. But what if I feel like this? What if nope, not buying it, moving on. But what if it's true? No, moving on. And really cutting it off every single time as much as possible. This is, I'm talking about this like to tell you how to do it ideally, right? It might not always work out that way because the anxiety is really high, but you will start to see that the anxiety starts to go down. At first, it might ramp up a little bit more. I mean, in the first week or two of you really fighting this, because your mind sees that you're no longer reacting, so it might try to send you more thoughts. So you might feel like, why am I getting more thoughts now? It's just because your mind is trying to get you back into reaction. That's normal. You just have to let this go, let this pass, this time period, I mean, right? If it throws you one thought a day or 50 thoughts a day, which is sometimes this is what happens, you're still disregarding the 50 thoughts the same way you disregarded the one thought. And you will see that the thoughts are not as sticky. So they're coming and going, but they're coming and going fairly fast. So yeah, but what you're describing is very, very common HOCD. There's nothing unique here. Is it possible, you also asked, is it possible to confuse attraction for anxiety? Yes, it's definitely possible, but I don't want you to dig into it, to try to figure out what is this feeling versus what is that feeling. Right now, you can confuse anything for anything because your mind is completely controlled by OCD. So how you feel is not controlled by you, it's controlled by OCD. So it can make you feel attracted, not attracted, you know what I mean? So, but it's not real true attraction, it's anxiety, fear. What if I'm attracted? So just disregard OCD, moving on. Yes, me and a million other people are experiencing this, so what? So, and the fact that it feels so real, whenever I talk to people all day, every session I hear the same thing, feels so real, right? That's how it goes. Feels so real, must be OCD. That's how you have to look at it. And I'm going to reiterate that you are not the only one going through this. This is extremely, extremely common type of OCD, So stand up to it. Don't be scared of it. Look at it that, okay, OCD, so what, And how you feel in the moment, it doesn't matter because, again, it can make you feel like anything. It's just the brain throwing things at you, Next question is, hi Ali, I really struggle with my PRL obsession to be a good person. For example, I feel a sense of urgency to figure out how I can do good to the world, even when I'm not in a position to do a lot. Even in the middle of exams and schoolwork, I get so many thoughts telling me I have to do something for charity or take on fundraising project in my free time. Normally, this would not be an issue, but I think it is OCD because I can't carry on with my daily life. Once an idea to do good enters my head, my mind constantly is telling me to figure out what I'll do, when I'll do it, which creates a lot of anxiety. How do I deal with the situation? I don't want to do I don't want to stop doing good things to help others, obviously, but I don't want to be constantly obsessing about whether I am doing things to be a good person. Right now, this is all OCD. You are I would say, and again, I see this a lot. You are doing this because you want to be a good person. That's a given. And you are a good person. But right now, a lot of the time, I would say, I mean, it's not that you're not doing it because you're a good person, right? But I think it's the OCD driving the situation. I just want to make sure you understand what I mean correctly, right? It's taking that urge to do good generally and bringing it to level 1000. That's what OCD is doing. So, and the thing is, this is the situation, again, because I see this quite often. It will never be enough. And it will start to get to a level which is unrealistic if it hasn't gotten to that level already. So, you know what? You just have to create a reasonable, realistic list of the good that you want to do, say, for the next upcoming month, right? And then stick to that list. And I would say try to have somebody proofread, so to speak, that list to see if it's actually realistic or if it's over the top. So make a list and then just stick to the list. Don't do any more than what you set up to do. And when you are doing the points that you wanted to do, then again, not doing it perfectly, doing it to a level of okay, you know, because the more you try to do things perfectly, the worse this is going to get, because it's a perfection thing as well. I have to do this exactly right, or I have to now take it to the next level, you know. So choose not to do that. And when OCD tells you, oh, that means you're a bad person because you're not doing this and you could do this and that, now you have to disregard, because that's just an OCD ploy to get you into anxiety. So the anxiety will come in, the urgency will come in, and you have to sit with the urgency and continue to stick with the list, you know? So you're not doing anything more than that. Next question is, hi Ali, I love your channel, thank you. I have had harm OCD for more than 50 years. My first thought at the age of 13. Through therapy and your channel, I felt like I was doing so great. Don't know why I had a spike for about a week now. Nothing is really bothering me. Is it possible that I find this wonderful feeling so great that I sabotage myself into thinking it's too good to be true? Thank you, Ali. You know what? I think that that's definitely possible. And also, as you are with OCD recovery, it's normal to have setbacks here and there. You know, as you go further in the recovery, the setbacks will become smaller, or smaller and smaller, and also very much spaced out, way more than they are now. So you just have to look at it that, okay, well, this has been a setback. First of all, you need to pull out of the setback, right? So start to do recovery work, start to stand up to OCD. Oh, yeah, clearly you have harm OCD. So I want to say, yeah, clearly I'm going to harm everybody. Just everybody, you know? Yeah, sure. Nice try. Or if it tells you, what if you already harmed somebody? Oh, clearly everybody's dead. What can I do? You know? So, and just disregarding. And keep doing that really intensely to get back on track. And then also try to analyze from a logical standpoint, not the thought itself, but why do you think the thought occurred in the first place? Again, not in the way of the content of the thought, but why did the OCD attack occur? Were you stressed out? Were you overwhelmed? Were you doing too much? Did you not really do a lot of exposure work, right? So try to look at it that way and see what happened to cause you to kind of slide back. Why didn't you do the response prevention right away? Because it seems like you're now doing really good with it, right? So what happened, that what was the reason why you didn't do it? And you know, just be aware of it next time, because you're still in the process of the recovery, so you have to watch out that a little bit, you know, these things will happen every once in a while, but they will happen less and be less intense as they go. But right now you really need to get back to action and doing the exposure response prevention. But you're doing great. I mean, you're recovering, you know. That's all that matters, you know. Once you get on the road of recovery and you start to see real results, what can stop you? Yeah, okay, even if you have a few setbacks, you might recover a little bit later, you know, versus a little bit sooner, but you will recover, you know. Where before there was no hope, now there's hope. Now there's not just hope, but there's tangible proof that you feel better, you know. So just getting back on track and not blaming yourself. You know, these things happen. It's just every new moment is a moment that you need to start recovering, you know. Next question is, Ali, what is the best way to deal with triggers? I'm suffering from ROCD. The simplest things trigger me. For example, I go outside and see men who's good looking. Instantly my stomach drops and I get nervous. Then of course all these thoughts keep popping in my head, like, why do I think he's good looking? Does this mean I don't love my boyfriend? What would I do if this man in particular starts to flirt with me? Would I engage in an affair, and so forth? I'm in the process of recovery and I keep fighting the thoughts. Just like you say, I disregard them or delay them. However, I get triggered all the time, and that's what's bugging me a lot though. Especially when my stomach drops and I become nervous. Um, it sucks, and I feel like my brain notices right away, and then it keeps firing thoughts like crazy. However, I'm facing triggers like this by doing ERP, but like I said, it's hard. you have to look at it as exposure. And if you want to do more exposure, then for example, watching anything on TV, right? Anybody who's on TV is probably good looking, right? Most people anyways. Not to kind of group people in one box or anything like that, but watch any regular show that has good looking people on it, you know. And when these thoughts come in, whatever, disregarding, you know, and just try to as much as possible look at these thoughts, that these thoughts are around you, they have nothing to do with you. They're just coming in, they're coming and going. 50,000 thoughts a day. People can get all kinds of weird thoughts. It doesn't mean anything. And you need to retrain your brain to not react with fear. And the only way to do that is to have the trigger, right? You see somebody good looking, whatever, they're good looking. Your brain's like, well, what if you have an affair? What if this, what if that? OCD disregarding, but disregarding. You know what I mean? So whatever it tells you, right away, you're like, nope, not buying it. You know, and after a while, this will become your new normal and you will stop being so scared. You know, but it's just ERP. Your brain needs to get to a certain number of exposures to believe you that this is no longer scary, because it learned that it was scary. So it just needs a little bit of time, to fix itself, you know. And you need to send a clear message that you're choosing to no longer react with fear to these thoughts. So it's a lot of exposures, a clear message, and that's what will get you to recovery. Next question is, hi Ali, I was wondering, how do I cope with suicidal OCD theme and how to cope with it? Why does it feel so real? Again, I was just talking in the other question. You guys see that it always feels so real, right? This is also coming with homicidal thoughts about killing my family and friends, and I'm really confused if these thoughts are real or not. I can't tell. What I can tell you, they're all OCD, because this is the stuff I hear every single day, and so far nobody has hurt anybody or themselves. So this is clearly OCD, but you need to stop paying attention to the chatter that's going on in your brain. Whatever it's telling you, it doesn't even know what it's really telling you. It's just retelling whatever you got scared of the first time it told it to you. And why did you get the very first thought? Well, we all get weird thoughts all the time. It doesn't mean anything. So they've proven in actual scientific studies that people with OCD and people without OCD have the same thoughts. And actually, I believe in that study, they actually specifically talked about harm OCD. So it was a more updated study. So they weren't talking about washing hands or anything. So, but again, that's also common with everybody across the board. So you have to look at it that, okay, OCD, tell me more about how I'm going to harm everybody, including myself. Let's hear it, right? And then it will say something. You're like, oh, that's nice, disregarding. Then throughout the day, keep doing that. But don't buy into what it's selling to you. Just look at it that, okay, it's noise, you know? Like I was saying in one of the previous Q&As, right? Imagine you bought a pet parrot. And that pet parrot continuously is talking about suicide, killing people, all this kind of stuff. You can't really retrain it in the course of a day, so you do your best to retrain it. But right now, it's just chattering away. And that's okay. And we just need to look at it that it's over there, it's talking, has no idea what it's saying anyway, so who cares? And I'm just over here living my life. Right? This is how you have to separate yourself from these thoughts. They have nothing to do with you, and you need to choose to move on and choose to disregard them as much as possible. Next question is, hi Ali, can you give advice for religious OCD and being a good person? Again, you guys see a recurring theme here. As it relates to money, often OCD automatically brings up a very strong guilt and unworthiness when it comes to accepting gifts, spending money, and tries to come up with compulsions which are very compelling to make guilt and fear go away. Would really like to be free of these things. So again, very common OCD fear. You know, I find that with OCD generally there's not a lot of variety. It kind of sticks to the same things for most people. So very common whenever you get the trigger. So it can bring up things automatically, and feelings of guilt and feelings of unworthiness. That's all just part of OCD. You know, they're not actually valid feelings. They're just automatic feelings. If, say, for example, OCD brought in a feeling a feeling of extreme euphoria all of a sudden, you would understand that, okay, this is very strange. Something strange is happening. Well, something strange is happening with feelings of guilt for no reason or unworthiness for no reason. It's the same thing. Or if you had a sudden laughter attack, it's just the brain is doing something. It has nothing to do with you specifically, and with the theme specifically, right? It just knows that like there was a connection made before, that money and guilt and all of that you react to it like as a group, right? Because that's how you reacted to it the first time. And now it's just bringing this to you on autopilot with really high anxiety. So you just have to look at it straight in the eye and say, so what? I'm not buying this anymore. Bring on all the guilt. Bring on all the feelings. Let's hear them, and do nothing. Choose to at least delay analyzing, but try to not analyze and try not to do compulsions. If it tells you, oh, you're gonna go broke, you can't spend this, spend it anyway. Not maybe, depending on the situation, I don't want you to kind of go against OCD and start buying cars or something, right? But within a reasonable amount, whatever. Say if you were at the store, you wanted to buy something and OCD tells you, oh, you shouldn't buy this because blah 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 blah, choosing not to listen, right? And choosing to push forward and keep doing that, right? You need to push through this OCD. If you would, in terms of spending and things like that, sometimes it helps to have a person who's like a marker. Who would you ideally want to be like in terms of say the finances, right? What would that person do? Because a lot of the times when people have OCD for a long time, it's hard for them to see, well, what is normal? So if you pick a person who you think is fairly normal, not that anybody's really normal, but who you want to emulate in this kind of situation, and then whatever you think they would do that. If they're a close family member or friend, then you can actually ask them, but just kind of picture what they would do and do that. Hi Ali, I've been doing ERP for my OCD thoughts and it has been great, but yesterday I was attacked by a new type of OCD thoughts related to religious OCD theme, blasphemous thoughts, and I was too overwhelmed by the thoughts that I started doing compulsions and seeking reassurance. I spent the whole day crying and panicking. Ali, why did these thoughts appear? Was it because I was probably pushing myself too much with ERP? Okay, so it's not because you're pushing yourself too much, it's because you're pushing. And the brain's like, oh, you're not buying those thoughts? Okay, don't worry, I'll send you different thoughts, because it doesn't really care what you are reacting with fear to. As long as you're reacting with fear, it's going to send you the thoughts. So that's how you have to look at it, that, oh, okay, my brain found something new to attach to. How nice. Disregarding. And choosing to move on, always choosing to move on, not listening to what it's saying. Feelings that are coming along with OCD, doesn't matter, and when a lot of the times when people have this type of OCD theme, they feel like they need to pray or re-pray if a thought came up or a word that came up in their mind that has to do like a blasphemous word came up in their mind, right? Have to re-pray, have to apologize, have to do all kinds of things, right? So choosing not to do that. Again, this has nothing to do with you. This is happening outside of your control entirely, and you have nothing to feel guilty about. You cannot alter this right in the second when you're getting the OCD thought. You cannot change it. We're changing it over time, but right in this moment, there's nothing you can do. So this is not in your control. This is OCD controlling the situation. Again, the parent next to you is saying blasphemous words and you are taking the blame, where you're not the one who's saying them, right? So try to look at it that way, that it's outside your control, has nothing to do with you, and you're working on fixing it. Next question is, hi Ali, if we have been dependent on OCD drugs for years to get by, what's your opinion on the strategy of safely weaning them if we now decide to treat OCD by ERP instead of medication? So what I would say, and this is what I see with clients all the time, is the person comes to me, they start to get better, they're starting to, obviously as they're doing the work, and at some point they'll say, well, I feel like I don't want to be on the medication anymore. And again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a therapist, I'm a coach, so I can give my opinion, but in terms of anything medication related, you should really see and ask your doctor. But from talking to many people, I can tell you how generally it works. Usually people cut down about whatever dose they're taking into force, and reduce by one-fourth. I would say some doctors recommend one-fourth every 2 weeks, and then some recommend one-fourth a month, right? So if you are on a very high dose, you can divide it into basically 5 steps, right? So kind of very gradually decreasing, right? So depending on the kind of medication you take, you can cut the pill and all that kind of idea, right? So gradually reducing. Um, and again, you need to ask your doctor what would be their opinion on the best strategy of how to cut down. But the most important thing is that you need to be focused on ERP, confident in your recovery, confident that this is the decision you want to make, and then you're just reducing. And if you started to reduce and you're strong with ERP, you're strong with the with the process of recovery, right? Then you will come off of it. Whether you come off of it sooner or later, right? In terms of say, if you come off of it over the course of 1 month or over the course of 3 months, right? You're still coming off of it. And I've seen people have extreme side effects to cutting down medication fast. So just pay attention to it. And if you're feeling that something is wrong, say if you're getting a lot of suicidal thoughts or all of a sudden, or you feel extremely nauseated, you're getting extreme headaches, and there's really no other reason for it, then try to up the again, with the help of your doctor, try to up the dose and see if it will stop that, and then cut down more gradually. Don't take this though to mean that you have to now be on the medication forever, because a lot of this stuff is the side effects of the actual medication. So if you decide again, this is only my opinion, right? But if you decided to come off of it, don't let people sway you. Make a decision yourself. It's your body, it's your decision. Make the decision yourself, and whatever decision you make, sometimes you might say, I'm not ready, maybe I'll try next month. The other thing is, I don't recommend coming off of the medication when you are really stressed at any point in your life, just because it's just harder. But if that's what you want to do, then do it and just cut down very slowly. You should be okay. Thank you so much for all the questions. I do have more questions and I will respond to them tomorrow. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. I talk about all things OCD every single day. If you would like to do the recovery program with me, all the information is on youhaveocd.com. I'll see you tomorrow.